Today we will talk about simple present tense. The first question that we need to ask is, when do we use simple present tense? There are 4 occasions that we can use simple present tense. The first one, when we talk about things that are always true. The second one, when we talk about things that are true now. Third one, when we talk about feelings, opinions, and preferences. The last one, when we talk about things that we do regularly. Let's talk about things that are always true. For example, Tom and Joe are boys. Most likely, they are going to be boys forever. They are not going to become girls tomorrow suddenly. The second one, she comes from Hong Kong. So this is also a fact that is always true. She's not going to becomes from other countries tomorrow. The last one, the sun rises in the east. So this is also a fact that is always true, because the sun is not going to rise in other directions tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So for the things that are true now, for example, Paul lives in a big house. This is a fact that is true for now. But no one knows what happened after 1 year or 2 years. Maybe Paul is going to live in a small house in the future, but we don't have to think about that first. Right now, Paul lives in a big house. This is what really matters right now. The second one, I am 14 years old. So this is also something that is true right now. But later or after a few months, maybe I'm going to turn 15 years old. But we don't need to think about that. Right now, I am 14 years old. This is a fact that is true right now. Let's talk about feelings, opinions, and preferences. In her free time, Alex likes making desserts. Sandy likes swimming. So making desserts and swimming, these are their preferences, their feelings. So we use simple present tense to talk about things that we do regularly or our habits. For example, Peter and Jackie go to school by bus. This is the thing that they do regularly. They go to school by bus. They're not going to go to school by other public transport like train or minibus. Second one, every day my mom does roller skating. This is my mom's habits. Every Saturday, Mary has piano lessons. This is something that Mary does regularly. Last one, Sally goes jogging every day. So it talks about Sally's habit. So in these sentences, we can see the phrases like every day or every Saturday. These are expressions of time. So when we see these expressions of time, it's a big hint for us to use simple present tense. So here are 3 sentences. For example, we often watch a film during holidays. Mr. and Mrs. Wong, they never buy pets for their children. Joe is clever. He seldom disappoints his parents. So these are all something that happens regularly. But besides that, we want to focus on the adverbs of frequency, which are often, never, seldom in these sentences. So these are some hints for us to use simple present tense. So let's do some exercise. Complete the following sentences by writing the correct form of verbs in brackets. You'll see a timer on the right-hand corner. So time's up. Let's look at the answers. The number one, the answer is lives because of the subject my cousin. Number two, the answer is because of the Japanese restaurant. Number three, the answer is come because of the subject my friends. It's more than one person. Number four, the answer is am because of the subject I. Number five, the answer is are because of Henry, Kevin, and Paula. It's more than one person. Number two, the answer is we because of Henry, Kevin, and Paula. Last one, the answer is them because it's more than one person. So how do we make positive and negative statements and questions in the simple present tense? So when we want to form positive statements with verb to be, first we will put the subject and then followed by verb to be. So whether we use verb to be am, are, or is, it depends on the subject. So for example, when the subject is I, we will use am. When the subject is you, we, or they, we will use are. When the subject is he, she, or it, we will use is. For the negative statements, it is the same case. We will use subject first and then followed by verb to be. So the only thing that changes is we use am not, or are not, or is not. So when we form questions by using verb to be, in this case, we put verb to be at the beginning and then followed by subject. So whether we use am or are or is, it depends on the subject. When the subject is I, we use am at the beginning. When the subject is you, we, or they, we use are at the beginning. When the subject is he, she, or it, we put is at the beginning. For the short answers of the questions, first we need to answer yes or no, and then followed by subject and verb to be. So it is the same case. Whether we use am, are, or is, it depends on the subject, whether they are I, you, or we, or they, or he, or she, or it. So for the positive statements by using other verbs, first we'll use subject and then followed by verb. But whether the verb will add s, it depends on the subject. For example, for the subject I, you, we, or they, we will simply use the verb like. But for he, she, or it, we need to add s after the verb like. So for the negative statements, we will use do not like or does not like. But in this case, whether we use I, you, we, or they, or he, or she, or it, the like will remain the same. We will not change anything for the verb. For questions, we put do or does at the beginning and then followed by subject and then the main verb. For example, when the subject is I, you, we, or they, we will use do. When the subject is he, she, or it, we will use does to form the questions. For the short answers, we will answer yes or no first, and then the subject, and then we will add do or does, or do not or does not. So it's exercise time. Complete the following sentences by writing the correct form of verbs in brackets. So just like last time, you will see a timer on the right-hand corner. So time's up. Let's look at the exercise answers. The first one, the answer is does not like. We use does not instead of do not because of the subject David. Number 2, the answer is are because of the subject you. Number 3, the answer is do you read comic books? We use do because of the subject you. Number 4, water and oil do not mix. We use do not instead of does not because of water and oil. It's more than one thing. Last one. Does Mr. Chen teach English and history? We use does because of Mr. Chen. But in this question, we use teach instead of adding es after teach this word because it is a question, so we will not change the verb teach to anything. We will just keep the bare infinitive form of teach. So let's look at an example. Sally doesn't go to school on foot. She goes to school by bus. In this case, we use does not because of Sally. And we use go instead of goes because this is a negative statement. So how do we form verbs in the simple present tense? If the subject is I, you, we, or they, we will use bare infinitives. So we will just use the verb work, play, go, and eat. For the subject he, she, or it, we will have to use third-person singulars. That means we will add s or es or we change the verb to other forms. For example, works, plays, goes, eats. So for the third-person singulars, most of the verbs will add s. For example, give to gives, like to likes, walk to walk. For verbs ending in ss, x, sh, ch, and o, we will add es after the verb. For example, the word miss ends with ss, so we will add es after the word. For this word mix, it ends with x, so we will also add es after the word. For brush, it ends with sh, so we will add es. Watch, it ends with ch, so we will also add es. Last one. Do, it ends with o, so we will add es. For verbs ending in a consonant letter and y, we will delete the y and replace it by ies. For example, the word cry, we will delete the y and replace it by ies. It becomes cries. For the word fry, it is the same case, it ends with y, so we delete it and replace it by ies. Reply, we delete the y and replace it by ies and become replies. For some of the irregular verbs, we will just change the whole word. For example, we change have to has. Time for exercise. You need to finish the following sentences by writing the correct form of verbs in brackets. You have a timer on the right hand side. So time's up. Let's look at the answers. The first one, the answer is watches, because of the subject, my grandfather. And we add es here because of the letter ch. Number two, the answer is goes, because of the subject James. And in this case, we add es because of the letter o. Number three, the answer is misses, because the word miss ends with ss. Number four, the answer is studies. In this case, we delete y and replace it by ies. Number five, the answer is brushes. In this case, we add es because of the letter ch. Let's do more exercise. Just like last time, you need to complete the sentences by writing the correct form of verbs in brackets. You'll have a timer on the right-hand corner. So time's up. Let's look at the answers. For number 6, the answer is has, because of the subject my cousin. Number 7, the answer is does, because of the subject my mother. But in this case, we add es because the word do ends with letter o. Question 8. The answer is fixes, because of the subject Mr. Low. So just like last question, we add es because the word fix ends with x. Last one. The answer is fries, because of the subject aunt, Agnes. But in this case, we will delete the y and replace it with ies. Remember, we do not add s to the main verb after do not or does not. We will keep the bare infinitive form. For example, does not like or does not likes. The first one is correct, the second one is incorrect. So let's have a review. When do we use the simple present tense? When we want to talk about things that are always true, things that are true now, feelings, opinions, and preferences, things that we do regularly. So how do we form statements in the simple present tense? For the positive statements, there are two ways. First one is to use verb to be, which is am, or are. Second one is to use other verbs, such as make, have, or dance. For the negative statements, there are also two ways. We use is not or am not or are not. Second one, we use do not or does not plus bare infinitive. For example, do not make, does not have, or do not swim. So whether we use do not or does not, it depends on the subject, whether they are I, you, we, they, or he, she, it. So how do we form yes or no questions in the simple present tense? So, there are first type, verb to be. We put is, am, or are at the beginning. For example, is she tall? Are you happy? The second one is to use other verbs. But in this case, we will put do or does at the beginning. For example, do you like swimming? Does she live in Tumun? So whether we use do or does, it depends on the subject. So here's our last exercise. You have asked your friends about their hobbies. Complete the descriptions with the correct form of the verbs in brackets. So in this task, you will have 3 minutes to finish it. So time's up. Let's look at the answers. The first one, the answer is likes because of the subject mark. Number 2, the answer is does not like. In this case, we do not add s after the word like because it is a negative statement. Number 3, the answer is because of the subject he. Number 4, she watches plays or musicals once a month. The answer is watches because of the subject she. But in this case, we add es because the word watch ends with ch. Number 5, the answer is wants because of the subject she. Last one, the answer is flies. In this case, we delete the y and replace it with ies. So again, in this exercise, you will have 3 minutes to finish this task. So time's up. Let's look at the answers. For question 7, the answer is has because of the subject Tom. Number 8, the answer is practices because of the subject he. Number 9, the answer is studies. So in this case, we will delete the y and replace it with ies. Number 10, the answer is goes. So in this one, we will add es because the word go ends with letter O. Last one, the answer is takes because of the subject she. Remember to do the homework. It is a worksheet. This is the end of our class. Thank you, everyone.